Call the North Smithfield School Committee meeting of July 18, 2023. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lombardi,
Present.
Mrs. Mayo. Here. Mr. Connell,
Here.
Mrs. Vada. Here. Mrs. Barty-Meoli, we were aware she wouldn't be in.
Okay, we have 4 present. We have a quorum. Let's move on to the budget releases, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone, and let's go to public comment first. Let's see, Mary Smee.
Good evening, everyone. Chairman Lombardi, members of the North Smithfield School Committee, Superintendent St. Jean, and Douglas Ogier, who I hoped would be here as a convener of the Water Supply Review Committee. I speak tonight to enter my objections to agenda item number 10, approval of the RFP for the canopied parking lot at the athletic complex. I appeared before you on Monday, August 29th, 2022, to address my concerns as noted below, which have been attached and submitted to Chairman Lombardi. At that meeting, 8/29, it was made clear that solar canopies for our own zoning map and ordinances are not allowed at the schools, whether they be ground or rooftop mounted. The school committee understood that any proposed change would necessitate approval by zoning. The superintendent at that time was tasked to prepare bid specs for enlargement of the parking lot only, as people were well aware that it would not pass zoning. In an article published by the Valley Breeze on 10/20/22, it was reported that the school committee would pursue alternative means for expanding the lot, other than as part of an agreement with Green Energy. To quote the superintendent, "As much as I like the thought of solar and the canopy, I do have concerns about the longevity of it." According to the article, Mr. St. Jean had inquired of another company and was given a quote of $140,000, which had included another 60 parking spaces and the clearing of trees. And there is potentially a reimbursement of 35% of that cost from RIDE. That was also discussed. And Mrs. Mayo at that meeting concurred that additional parking spaces were all that were needed. Fast forward to 4/18/23. The agenda noted discussion regarding the contract for a parking lot extension at the Joyce Athletic Complex. The minutes note that Mr. St. Jean reached out to URI to discuss their canopied lots. This is not by any means an apples to apples comparison, as many would have you believe. URI moved their canopied lots so that water near their fine arts complex could never be compromised. And here again, like the movie Groundhog Day, or if you prefer the game Whack-A-Mole, I stand before you. We are now searching for 3 separate bids, the canopy, regrading, and the provision for 60 more spaces. Our most precious commodity, water, has been under attack in this town. MST has proposed a new facility which would negatively impact our water in the Slatersville area, and many in this town are highly engaged to fight MST's appeal to DEM. Another individual in this town that owns the dams in the reservoir has diverted a waterway in Slatersville. It is not clear whether or not the necessary permits were obtained through DEM. In addition, a historic water wheel long on display has been removed from the property. Lorraine Joubert, a professor in the URI Department of Resources Science, speaking before the North Smithfield Water Supply Review Board in May, urged officials to be more proactive on water issues and protecting residents going forward. I feel that certain town employees and elected officials seek to meet the demands of a few rather than a town as a whole. And that is why we are back to square one on this issue. If we reject MST, we should be against solar canopies for that very same issue, water. The area surrounding North Smithfield High School has been long used to farm by the Goodwin family and is located near Todd's Pond, Primrose Pond, and the Audubon Fort Wildlife Refuge. Please note that Todd's Pond is located within the Blackstone River, West River to Peters River watershed, and Primrose Pond is located within the Woonasquatucket River watershed. The United Nations and the EPA have declared August to be National Water Quality Month to bring awareness to the importance of water, to appreciate and protect our water resources, and to make the most of the relatively small amounts of fresh water available. I'm asking, what are you going to do to protect it? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Did Ann, Sophia, and Thayer can come up either together or individually, whatever you prefer.
Hello, I'm Sophia Colucci, and this is Thayer Glucksman, and this is Ian Khan. At the end of last school year, it came to our attention that the electives, Gothic literature and fairy tales were removed from the coming school year's class roster, and wasn't confirmed when or if they would be coming back. The classes were removed due to complaints about the nature of the content. In Gothic, the book The Virgin Suicides, commonly considered a modern classic, is about a family of sisters who all end up taking their own life. The mental health taboo is a huge reason that this book received backlash. Taboos lead to holes in educations, which leads to stigma and discrimination, making it harder for people to get help who need it. This not talking about these bad, real things do not make them go away, but only make it harder for people to get help when they need it. This book was also taken out of context in its complaints and not looked at as an entirety. In addition, The Virgin Suicides is considered age rating 13 plus on most accounts, and higher ranges consider it 17 plus, which makes sense as the class is only offered to juniors and seniors. When complaints are given, they were not given to the teachers themselves that taught the class. Both Ms. Camara and Ms. Savoli are very good teachers, and they care about everything they are teaching. I can attest to this because I was in Ms. Savoli's 9th grade English class and in book club, which those two cooperated and run. They are very passionate for what they speak about, and I think it's not only a detriment to students' educations, but also the teachers' spirits in teaching to take away a class that not only do I know many students loved to take and had a very good time learning about, but also take it away from the teachers who love teaching about what they like. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Thayer Glucksman. So, good evening. I'm also a rising 10th grader at the high school. I'd like to bring up some points with Sophia about the English grammar curriculum. First, censorship and the banning of books and censoring curriculums, English curriculums, prevent students from learning the whole picture, so to speak, of any given topic that might be covered in the class. This greatly restricts their worldview and sort of whole education as to what they're influenced to and what they're exposed to. Additionally, students are the only ones who are impacted by these curriculums. You, the school committee, not our parents, not our teachers. So parents can, of course, restrict what we are exposed to at home, but it's not fair to us as learners and students if they are able to restrict what we're exposed to as at school and environment where we're supposed to be able to learn safely and freely. It's not fair to us or our educators, because when you restrict and censor books and curriculums, like I said, it doesn't give anyone the whole picture of what is the deeper root of any topic. So these topics that could be censored, like Sophia said, the Virgin Suicide, that those prevent us from becoming stronger and more effective learners and people. Finally, I'd just like to add that I was also a member of the high school book club with Mrs. Savoli and Mrs. Camara, the librarian. I felt completely safe with those two and my friends in the club when we read and discussed books like Rosemary's Baby and Truth Is, both of which cover heavy topics like suicide and sex. High school, after all, is a place for growth, both as a person and a learner and a student. Students are introduced to new topics, and we need to be able to freely discuss these topics so we can get the full picture of what we're learning and how we can pass this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, members of the school committee. My name is Ayan Khan. I'm a rising 10th grader as well. And to add off the points of Thayer and Sophia, this kind of censorship will not just stop with the English department if we allow it to continue. The kinds of subjects that this will affect mostly is the history subject. Most parents could express their concern over the ugly and sometimes brutal history of the treatment of certain races in United States history, most specifically African Americans and Native Americans. Some parents might not allow schools to teach children how 90% of Native Americans were killed during the making of the United States. They also might not want their children to read specific stories that discuss these things, such as racism, such as To Kill a Mockingbird, under the pretense that it's too graphic for high schoolers and the high schoolers should not read it. However, as stated earlier by Thayer, students' education impacts their whole lives, and denying them the right to know our nation's history, or sometimes ugly history, is denying them crucial education. And this kind of censorship might start affecting other subjects as well, more than just history, such as science, with parents sometimes forcing their religious views to deny certain scientific facts, such as evolution with creationism. So overall, thank you so much for listening to our points, and we hope you will consider them when making a decision.
Thank you. We really appreciate you coming and stating what you believe. So thank you very much. We encourage that from all students, from all parents, to do that. Does anyone else have any comments? Moving on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions about the consent agenda? Erin?
I'm sorry, I actually do have a
Sure.
question. It's number 5, the first reading of the Internet Network Acceptable Policy. I'm just wondering why signature requirements have been removed, parents and students.
Adam, are you, no, Adam is not on board right now.
I'm here. I'm actually here under Susie Alba. Unfortunately, I can't change my name. So I'm here under my wife's name. But Gene, just to answer your question, so it was basically during COVID, we kind of relaxed that a bit because of the physical transfer of paper, and we never quite recuperated that. And so we wanted to kind of mirror the process that we have with our Chromebook policy, whereas if students are using our devices, they kind of opt in to the policy. So that's kind of the rationale behind it. And when new parents and students come into the district, they have to sign off on some of the acceptable use policies. It's part of the online registration process. So they see it there, and we feel as if just to facilitate the flow of due process, we rather just have it in effect where if people are using our network or using our services, that they're automatically opted into the policy.
Okay, as long as we have knowledge of the fact that parents are reading it and are aware of it, and the students are reading it and aware of it, that's fine with me. I was just surprised to see that it wasn't there.
Well, and the other thing that's proving, certainly as time goes on and technology is embedded into everything, is to use the internet, which is filtered, the Chromebooks. It's just part of doing business. It's sort of opting out of, I don't want to use that textbook, but the class is based on that textbook. So it's a way to sort of just simplify all of this and put it onto one umbrella.
Thank you, Adam.
No problem.
On that same, can we, I mean, again, if it's important, can we do electronic signatures? Like PDF, you know?
Well, as part of the online registration process, they have to select a checkbox which says that they've read the policies. So I believe that is basically like an online signature.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the same thing and wondered that, but do they say like they acknowledge that they've read it and they accept it, or just that they've read it?
I can check the exact language, but it's basically that they've read it and they've accepted it.
By accepting the computer, they're accepting it, right? More or less.
Correct.
I understand your point, but
No, I'm comfortable with that.
yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah.
It's the way, yeah, it's the way things, everything's
Yeah.
being done online nowadays. when it comes to-
Okay, sounds good. All right, moving on. Is there any other questions in regards to the consent agenda?
Yeah, I have a question about number 10.
Mhm.
In regard to what Mrs. Smini said, I was curious to know what we had in plans for zoning, for example. I know that you have to follow a process. Maybe you can kind of talk through the process just a little bit and what we have in terms of safeguards or what the town will have in terms of safeguards
Right,
for the
and-
environment going forward.
And what I did, I took a path which I don't think will make anybody happy. Because there are very strong opinions on every aspect of this project. So this is an RFP for a design build. We're not going to go directly create something immediately. There are specifications with basically 3 different levels or aspects, and it doesn't have to be all of them. 1, just repave and fix the current parking lot. Number 2, put in the extension, the 60 unit, 60 slot expansion. 3, put a solar canopy on. It doesn't have to be all of them. It doesn't have to be any of them. But what we'll have is some contractors that will come through. They will take a look at the site, and some may propose a repaving, some may propose a repaving plus an expansion. Some may propose a repaving, expansion, and canopy. And at that point, then it's really up to the town to decide which direction to go. As I said, I like the thought of solar. I do have long-term concerns, but to be honest, I have so many projects that even extending the parking lot is a burden, even though we have the money set aside, possibly through the revolving fund, and we could maybe get some ride reimbursement. It's just one more project on top of so many other projects. That's why the town, the school committee, the community to prioritize what are the most important. And, and I can give recommendations. I can look for pricing. I can, again, make recommendations, but ultimately it's the school committee, the town council, and the community that will decide what is the best use of our funds. But this RFP isn't designed to force one thing over another. It's to give options. And part of that then would be to go through with the environmental and the zoning and all of that, depending what direction the town and the school committee would like to go.
As long as it goes to the zone.
It would have to. Everything would have to go through zoning because that's part of the design build. Would have to have all the proper permits and all of that.
Thank you, Superintendent. Any other questions?
Can I just ask a question? Is your concern with the solar canopy or with the extension of the parking
My
lot?
concern is the water. We have a groundwater aquifer in the schools. Schools are designated for our zoning requirements and ordinances as open space. And as such, our zoning ordinances prohibit solar, whether ground mounted or up in the air. They're prohibited in these kinds of environments. So that's my concern. Okay. Do we want to take a chance of contaminating any water that runs into a watershed, like the Woonasquatucket River or the Rivers Neighbors watershed and the Brook Branch River? That's a big concern.
Okay.
And we're fighting it in West Smithfield Legislature at MST And Doug has taken a specific interest in working with people relative to water. So that is my concern, water quality. It has to be here for generations to come. And we've had Superfund sites in this town. So, let's face that.
So I'm not sure that, I got the answer to the question yet. If we expanded the parking lot, is that a concern of yours? Or,
Expanding the parking lot is no
Okay,
concern.
thank
It's
you.
what may be contained within the solar panels and its impact on running.
thank you.
No, I just want to mention too about to follow up on what the superintendent said about zoning. A few years ago, when I was on committee earlier, we had there was a plan to try and have some of the buses be able to park in the lot out here between the middle school and the high school. And that we had to go to zoning. I went to the zoning with the, we went to zoning on that and the zoning board denied it. And that was so, and it didn't go forward. So the school department has gone in front of the zoning board before. And I know on that occasion, we were denied. So this is, again, just, I don't want to say just, but it's a request for proposals. It doesn't, I don't believe it doesn't circumvent any of the processes we'd have to follow through the town. Again, the parking lots, but they had to go in front of the zoning board just to park the buses. So I would think any type of expansions or things are being considered. If they need to go to the zoning board, they will. And they won't be shy about, if they don't think it's right, turning this down.
Yeah, and keep in mind too, is that this vote isn't, we're not putting out the RFP. We're just having you take a look at it, and we would be passing it on to the town because the large capital projects are often bid through the town process.
Okay, any other questions?
No, as long as we're pretty confident, as long as we know that it's gonna follow the right process and then go through zoning. We're comfortable.
So ultimately, we approve when it's gonna come back to us at some point to approve spending. We can RFP,
Right.
and then we're the ones who award. So there's no doubt that we would have a second award.
I think the
No,
town.
but
board-
the town, any capital projects, they all go through the town.
But we don't have to then approve it, like that we don't have to allocate spending on it.
I think what we've done with everything with the revolving fund, we've brought it before the school committee first and then town council.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Okay.
that,
The bid
corrected.
itself will be bid by the town, so I'm not sure if they both have to be built by you first or.
now, if the revolving fund isn't for some reason able to fund whatever comes in and it has to come out of our fund balance, then it would kick back to the school committee.
But I would assume, and again, I guess now maybe I'm getting too technical. If we thought it was gonna cost us 200,000 and it's 400,000, the town would not have the ability to say, no, you're gonna spend the extra 200,000. That would have to come from us.
That would make sense.
Yeah, I mean, in some way.
Yeah, I would think that there's gonna be communication.
Yeah. Okay. Any further questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to item number 3, the superintendent's report.
All I want to do is just congratulate, just to thank our maintenance staff and our custodians. You can see it's pretty warm in this room. They're throughout all the warm rooms, cleaning but what I want to highlight, and I'll upload some photos, is this building, these classrooms are getting new paint jobs and the new classrooms look fantastic. The high school is getting the new windows installed. And NSCS is getting a complete library overhaul, paid through from a grant. So the buildings are going to open and they're just going to look fantastic. And I will be uploading some pictures to show the work that's being done.
Great. Thank you. Any questions? Moving on to informational purposes for, well, 4.1, personnel resignations, retirements, leave of absences and appointments.
And we have we're just so blessed with the quality of staff we've been able to hire. We've had open positions, and the application pool has just been top tier. So we've hired some really impressive people. And just to embarrass her the most, because she came in, Dina is going to be our new Dean of Students at NSCS. And she comes in so incredibly highly qualified, and we're just absolutely thrilled to have her as part of the team.
Congratulations. Moving on to number 2, special extracurricular appointments. They're all right here. Thank you, Superintendent. Anybody have any questions?
I just, a comment. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Just again, I see so many names that have been on here for so long, and I think that ties into what the superintendent said about bringing in people who, bringing in some people. We also have been able to retain, and a lot of these people are like taking on jobs that they've had before, you know, our math team advisor, our choral people, our band directors, they've been here. And our social studies chair, a lot of these people have been doing this for a while, and they continue to, the school continues to excel in a lot of these areas. So it's just great to see that continuity and that people who've been doing it a while still want to do it for the district. It's a good thing to see.
Absolutely.
And we thank them obviously for their effort.
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on to 5, old business, the fiscal year 24 operating capital budgets. Anything? Great, thank you. Item 5.2, extension of the Superintendent St. Jean's contract for an additional year. That has been provided to you, but it's the same contract with whatever the contractual raises carried for another year. Right, Superintendent?
Yeah, it's the same old, same old.
So
So am I
if-
guess. So it's up to you.
if we
It's, you know,
voted through, are you going to sign it? I'm just wondering.
You know what? I pre-signed it before you did it, just in case, so.
I think I vote.
Anybody have any questions, concerns? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the extension of the superintendent's contract as presented.
So moved.
Motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. All right, moving on to my favorite thing is teacher recalls.
We have 3 more coming back. So you have 3 on the list, and do we have everybody back? Just 1 or 2 people now.
Good job, superintendent. Thank you.
I know, we've had so many. I think we're complete. Maybe 1 or 2.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, I'll make a, there you go, make a motion to approve the teacher recalls as presented.
So moved.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Is there any further business? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.